There are many, but I think the one which is freshest in my mind would be Barack Obama. I think it is rare for us to have an opportunity, particularly to watch an African American. I was at the convention in 2004. I was sitting a few feet from him with the Iowa delegation when he gave that speech. And I had just met him when he walked down the aisle, but when he got up on that stage, and you just heard him, and then you went back and researched, and I saw him in Iowa, which we Iowans get to do a lot. He is my idea of what a leader really is and should be.
Probably my mother. My mother, because my parents were leaders for me all my life. One of the things that they taught me was that I could be anything that I wanted to be as long as I worked hard at it. They provided us with the tools that we needed to be productive members of this society. And it's interesting because when I look back at their history, neither one of them were high school graduates, but they were smart enough to provide the tools necessary for all 7 of their children to become educated and for me to become college educated.
Probably the first person that comes to mind would be Mrs. Pauline Thompson, who was a teacher at the school that I attended. She graduated from Morris College. She truly believed in the college. I mean, she would recruit students to go to Morris. She would raise money. She would have programs, teas, sell, bake, whatever to help children to go to college, or students to go to college. So I think in terms of one that I saw active in the community, she would be the first one to come to my mind. I love Fannie Lou Hamer, and I always think of her as a leader. If there was someone else that I would tout and look up to, it was her because of the work that she did in terms of getting folks to go to vote.
My grandmother was not a leader in the sense of the word that people would usually associate with a leader, but she was a strong woman who had opinions, was not hesitant about sharing them, and more importantly was respected, a person of character and integrity, and people sought her advice. So to me, she was a leader in that community and a leader in that church.
Because I think some of that is socialization. Women sometimes are taught, black women especially, when they've been geared in the black community, that they go by the mantra that black women are supposed to stand beside their man, that they're made from the rib of a man, and so you are to work in the house, but you're not to work in the White House. And so I just believe that we have to reiterate and teach every generation of women that come up behind us that you are just as important, you are just as vital, you are just as salient to the movement of our people, and so you have to run for office.
I try to be fair, so I would have to say it's not just black women. Most women are insecure. We're insecure about our abilities, our competency, our capacity to do. And so I always encourage women to say, listen, women make great politicians. We are multitaskers. We are used to caring for people. We are used to juggling. We know how to make do with a little bit. And so we don't encourage each other enough. And we've bought into this foolishness that has separated us.
The first person that comes to mind is a duo. It would be my mother and grandmother, because they paved the way for me to be where I am now. My grandmother did not have the opportunity to go to college and finish, but she was very active in the unions, and so she taught me the importance of people having living wages, and so she was a champion for that, and so I followed in her footsteps in that regard. And then my mother after she was disabled in Desert Storm. She came back to South Carolina and ran for office, and I was her campaign manager. And so those are women who are very strong, and so they are who I consider to be leaders.
No, I think of my parents first, because had it not been for them, there would not be me. When you talk about where I am today, do I think of myself as a leader? Absolutely. I have been in leadership positions, but part of being a leader is being a servant. And so I've been a public servant for a number of years, starting out in the Baltimore City Council. But more than that, even before then, I owned a newspaper. I was always engaged in the community, involved in several organizations, have taught young people from the college level to the business school level. So I've always considered myself a leader, but more importantly, a public servant.
I don't know if I really realized I was a leader, but I will tell you what prompted me to later on to know that was what is responsible for me being where I am today. My third grade teacher, Mrs. Lila Winston Gant, was one who inspired, motivated me, had me to believe that I was pretty when I thought I wasn't, had me to believe that I was smart, and that I could do anything. And she was always standing at the door, I felt every day, waiting just for me to come.
But I've simply operated under the guise of just doing what I thought was the right thing to do. A lot of it goes back to my upbringing. We were taught the basic things you learn in kindergarten, but more importantly, we were taught about how important it is to make a difference. Wherever you are, wherever you go, kind of like in Sunday school, you learn this little light of mine. In Vacation Bible School, I'm going to let it shine. That was the message that my brothers and sisters and I were taught. Make a difference. Let your light shine. And so I've done that throughout my life.
I was brought up with parents who said you could be anything that you wanted to be. And so in just charting my own life course, I sought, first of all, to be in a great management training program, having earned my master's degree in business from Morgan State University. And then I wanted to share that with other folks. I started out in banking. I ended up analyzing financial statements for businesses and decided that I wasn't doing enough for African Americans to instill ownership in business for them. So I found an organization called the National Council for Equal Business Opportunities. And what they basically did was to help African Americans and other minorities who wanted to go into business. And so I took my background in finance and my background in business and brought it to that organization and helped a number of companies, African Americans specifically, companies to start their own businesses or to expand their businesses.
I've always been active. My family and my kids said I'm just a nosy lady, but I've always been active in other campaigns. I've always worked in other campaigns. I've always been a part of organizations that were involved within the community. And when I was elected to office or asked to run for office, it was because of that involvement that is the reason I'm sitting here today.
Well, actually, I've always worked on a lot of campaigns, always been in the community working, and I had an organization called Town 1000, and this organization was geared towards getting African Americans and women elected to office. One year, I told women in a workshop that it's easy to run for office, and they gave me the challenge. If it's so easy, why haven't you ran? So I said, oh, okay, then I'll run. And so the very next time an election came around, I ran for office.
I never thought of myself as being a leader or someone who would be a legislator or anything like that. I happened to be at a meeting and there were individuals there who thought I should, and they asked me to run. And I had moved to my town about 2 years before, and I thought they were a little bit nuts. I was African American, I was a woman, and I lived in a town which had about 800 African Americans, and I thought they were crazy. I spent a month or two just checking with everyone in town, asking them why they thought I should run. And I had been very visible in the community doing a lot of things. And everyone said that I should do it. And then I thought, intellectually, I was curious about what it would be like to run for office. And then I just really got into it, and it kind of grew on and overtook me. And I think I realized that there were a lot of things that I had done that people recognized. And I think that's what happens a lot with women. Most men, to me, seem to just assert themselves and go, I'm going to do that. Women, it's almost like there's always someone who needs to come to us and tell us that we've got the ability, the capability, and that we should run.
I'm not a woman who can be controlled. I don't want to control anybody else, but I certainly don't want anybody trying to control me. I'm also not one who worries about being popular or going along with the crowd. I think it's important, if you are in a position of power, to have an independent mind and to think for yourself. I'm not into groupthink at all, never have been. And so, quite frankly, I would say to any young person out there who's thinking about getting involved civically or getting involved in any level, ask yourself first and foremost why you want to do it. Because the why, in my view, will determine how successful you are in doing it. And for me, I think it's important for anybody, whether you are a woman of color, male, whatever. I think it's important for you to make your own decisions and make your own choices. And you ought to be careful allowing other people to do that for you, particularly when it comes to matters of conscience. It is extremely important that you have a support network. I am fortunate because I am married almost 40 years to a wonderful man who is Dr. Terry K. Hunter, who is very supportive of me, has encouraged me to do a whole lot of things, and is really a lot of why I am as independent as I am. More importantly for me, as a black woman who is as engaged in the community and the state and, quite frankly, the country as I am, what I most appreciate about my husband is that he is not threatened by a strong black woman. He is not insecure. You know how some brothers, with all due respect to brothers, some brothers, you got to be behind, and there's a lot of insecurity there. I was blessed and highly favored enough with a man who is sure of himself and who he is, and so he pushes me always just a bit further to do what I want to do.
Because I think the first thing that I did was I went home that evening and I said to my husband, these crazy people want me to run for the Iowa House of Representatives. He didn't say anything, and I immediately dismissed it. A couple of days later, he asked me, he says, well, what are you going to do about that? And I was like, what are you talking about? Because I had truly dismissed it from my mind. And he said, running for the Iowa House. I said, oh, I'm not going to do that. I don't know these people. They don't know me. I probably could never win. And he just said to me very simply, a man who didn't give many compliments, he just said, it's the job that you were born to do.
Okay, so black women have always been leaders. We may not have always had the titles, we may not have always been in the forefront, but every important movement that has ever taken place in this nation has been geared up and led by black women. So it's very important because black women make up the majority of the electorate. Especially where I'm from in Georgia, black women are the predominant voting bloc. And so what we have to make sure of is that our young girls see that we are the leaders. We have to be out in the forefront because oftentimes men may have less education or they may have less experience, but they don't have any fears or trepidation about running for office, whereas black women may say, well, I need to make sure that all my debts are paid, that I finished school, that the children are raised out of the house. But I always tell women that if we stick together and work together, we have the ability to change the nation.
Because I think we first look at our families. Women tend to be concerned about making sure that the family is taken care of. and very much pushing the men to go ahead and become actively involved. And many times we play that supportive role. But I think that also in playing that supportive role, when you look at the work that's being done, that individual that was elected because of the work that the woman had done to make sure that he made that particular, or was elected to that particular position. Well, I think first thing we have to embrace making sure that we provide an opportunity for them to be a part of many of the things that we do. Show them, allow them to learn, be a part of the activities. I have an opportunity to invite young ladies to Page in the legislature. I am hosting a weekend called Girls, Gigabytes, and Gadgets to help them to become leaders in the world of science. So I think we have to assume responsibility or make it our business to be inclusive of young women and providing the opportunities for them to become leaders.
I think that those portrayals are very detrimental to the African American community and the large community at whole. I myself, I don't watch that type of television, but I know that many times people like to watch television that is eventful or something they consider exciting. But when you portray women in negative images like that, our young girls sometimes get the idea that it's okay to be loud, or it's okay to be obnoxious, it's okay to be a mean girl. But it's not okay, and so what we have to do is not just fight to take certain shows off, but all shows. So I'm a member of a sorority that I'm very proud of, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and when the show came about sorority girls, my sorority along with all the other sororities were in an uproar. Now, a lot of people say, well, you're doing that because you're classes or you're elitist, and I'm not gonna necessarily say that, but what I will say is it was not that show that should have been the only one we should have been boycotting. It should have been an across the board attempt for us to take down all of those things that degrade black women for who and what we are, because we have to be the example. And so if it was up to me, I would take them all down, because it doesn't do anything but feed and breed more ignorance into the world.
First, I would tell them, make sure that you find an organization that you feel, if you're not a member of an organization, that you feel would address the issues and concerns that you feel strongly about. That's step number one. Second, once you're in that organization, find a particular project or activity that will cause you to take the leadership role. You know, many times their organizations have members, but they don't have individuals who would take a leadership role. It may be a small committee, but if you're committed and carry that work out, you will find people will start to give you that credit, the responsibility, and many times more work.
I always tell them that be encouraged. You know, everyone has starts at different places in their lives. And so you don't have to mimic the crowd or be like everyone else, but know that your gifts will make room for you, that God has made all of us uniquely. And so when you have certain gifts and qualities, you have to trust who you are and walk in that. It's okay to fail, but it's not okay to be scared to attempt to try to be whoever and whatever God has called you to be. There are so many possibilities for us. So I always tell people, never give up. If you have a dream, never stop. Keep going, because you never know how it will turn out. I mean, I'm sure that when Ford decided he wanted to make cars, or when other people decided they wanted to build airplanes, that they didn't give up on their dream. They just persevered and kept going. And so that's what we have to do. Teach the young women that you always keep going and you never give up.
Be confident. Be confident, be assured, understand that, as my parents used to say to me, you can be anything you want to be in this world, you got to work hard for it. You know, I think understanding who you are is very important, and don't make excuses for other people. You know, like, I think we continue to make excuses for America as it relates to racism. America has a race problem, not us. You know, America is the one who is discriminated. America is the one who sold us into slavery. And that's not our issue. That's America's issue. And it's something that America has to come to grips with. It's not our problem. It's theirs. And I think that when we make our children understand that and realize that they can reach their capacity and become anything that they want to, and don't make excuses for America. Do what it is that you are capable and have the capacity to do.
Women make great politicians. I would say to any person who is watching this video, don't you ever doubt that you can't do it.